William Francis Smith served in the U.S. Navy during World War II. Francis worked in cryptography and spent most of his time aboard the USS Alcor AR-10 listening to Morse code. The USS Alcor was a destroyer tender in the Pacific Ocean, which provided ship repairs to many Navy ships. Hey, tell me your name.
William Francis Smith.
And where are you from?
Rushville.
So you're from here?
Yes.
Where did you go to high school?
Frenchville.
And what year did you graduate?
I graduated in 42.
1942. So the war was
It
already...
was getting along pretty hot at that time.
And tell me about how you entered the military.
You happened to what?
How did you enter the military?
Oh, I volunteered in Knoxville at the old post office.
Okay.
And joined there, but I was sworn in Nashville.
Okay. And what branch of service did you enter?
Navy.
U.S. Navy. Well, good. So you swore in Nashville, and then where did they send you?
Went from there to Great Lakes, Illinois.
Okay. And how did you get up there?
Went by train.
A train.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the train ride?
Oh, yes.
What was that like?
It was pretty rough. We stopped, every little stop we made, there was a whole bunch of people waiting there to hand us all kind of stuff to eat. We really enjoyed it.
Well, good. So you arrived in Great Lakes.
Arrived in Chicago, and there they had a whole row of checker cabs waiting to pick us up and take us over to the L, as they called it, the railway there.
Okay.
And we got on the train there and went all the way to the gates of the Naval Training Station. We're let out there. And all the boys that are already in there started hollering, "You're going to be sorry." And we were.
Well, and what time of year was this?
That was in September.
September of 1942. And so you were in Great Lakes, and then where did you go from there?
Went from there to, well, first off, we got 10 days furlough at home. Then we went to OGU for 2 days. And then they told us all out we were going, we had to catch a bus to go over to the train station to get to out West Coast. Well, we all fell out and had our equipment ready to get on the bus, and they changed our orders. They said we would be going to Norfolk, Virginia. So we caught a train that night and went to Norfolk.
And then,
We got to Norfolk, the train went right into the Navy Yard. And there was 3 buses lined up to take us over to the ship. They took us over to the Alcor then. We got on the Alcor and we stayed on, had our nights fixed up before we found a place to sleep.
And when you say the Alcor, you're talking about the USS Alcor.
USS Alcor.
The AR-10. And when you first saw that ship, what did you think of it?
It looked awful to me.
Yeah.
I thought, well, I'll be leaving the next few days. And 21 months later, I left it.
So you were on the ship for 21 months. And what was your job in the Navy?
Well, first off, I started training for a radio operator. But I just worked a short time at that. And they called me to the office and said they had another job they wanted to put me in. So they said they had to send an officer to Louisville here to check my background, and that they would let me know something in the next few days. And in a few days they called me back to the office and said that I had been cleared to work in the code office. Says, "You'll be doing cryptography." I asked him, "What in the world is cryptography?" And he said, "You'll find out soon enough." No, it wasn't long then before I went into that.
Did you have special training?
No special training at all.
Okay, but they did teach you, because working with crypto.
This machine was new at the time, and we had two machines in the office. One of them they kept covered at all times, and the other one was just a standby. But any time that we had to take that machine to be repaired, there was two enlisted men, an armed guard, and an officer went with it, and he stayed with it till it was ready.
And you're talking about the Enigma machine.
Enigma machine. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what was the purpose of the Enigma?
Well, what happened was the radio operator, of course you said you was an operator, but he would take the message in code and hand it through the door. The door to the building was a half door and then an upper door. The upper door was the only one that stayed open all the time. They had there's 3 rooms that we worked in, and the back room was where the officers mostly stayed, and the next one was the Enigma machine. And this radio operator would bring the message to there and hand it to us. We'd take it, and we'd look at the first 5 letters of the code, and that would tell us what code to look at in the code book. There were several little wheels. These wheels here.
You see that?
Those wheels, when they snapped in there, the code, the message that we got would tell us what wheels to put in this machine. Well, you put those in that machine, and you start typing. There it comes out on the strip, and that's where you get your message. Then the same way, if you're going to reverse it, you've got to go and go back to the code book and reverse your machine. And it's complicated affair, but it takes you a little while to learn how to operate the thing.
Probably the most important job on the ship is receiving those messages.
I didn't consider it so, but maybe they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they told us when we went in, don't mention anything you see down in this office. If you do, you can be court-martialed. Mm-hmm. We had, the 3 of us had a Q rating, as they called it. Mm-hmm. I never did know what that meant, but we had it, and if a message came in from a Radio Shack and we got it, we had to look at the code on the message, then go to the code book, and if it said secret, we could go ahead and break it. But if it said top secret, we had to call an officer in, and he'd come in, and we had to get out of the office. And he'd break that and discard it, and all the scrap paper went into some garbage can they had there. And every morning they had to take all that scrap paper over to an incinerator and burn it. To do that, they always had 2 enlisted men, and an armed guard and an officer went with that. And they put those papers in that incinerator one at a time. Make sure every one of them went in.
Wow. So what was life like on the ship, outside of being in the radio
life
show?
wasn't too easy, because that paper that they've got here of the history of the Alcor, it don't even mention that we were ever on that ship.
Wow. And what was the purpose of the Alcor? What was its mission?
The Alcor was a repair ship for destroyers and destroyer escorts.
Okay.
We had one ship come in beside us and had the whole bridge blown off of it. They just pulled the welders out and started working. In a few days, they had it ready to go again. But that was his main purpose. And later on, of course, he went to the Pacific. And some of the literature I've got on it said that it was declared unfit for service 5 different times, yet it finished the war.
Wow.
And shortly after I got out, about 6 months, it was sent to the junkyard.
So, and you were in both the Atlantic and the Pacific?
No, I was never in the Pacific.
Oh, just the Atlantic. Okay. And
see, when it went to the Pacific, all of our group got off and went in. We moved into barracks then.
Okay. And how did they used to camouflage the ship during the war?
Oh, that was some of the aircraft carriers that the camouflage. But the Essex was the biggest carrier we had at that time. It would take it out and circle around a while and let the subs get a good idea of what they looked like. Then they'd bring it back in and they'd change the number on the ship. And they'd bring a barge alongside and with a man with a great long pole with a spray on it. And he'd spray that ship again, change the color, send it back out. That was to make them think we had more ships than what we did at the time. The Essex and the old Ranger was about the only ones that we had in the Atlantic that was around.
How many men were on the ship?
Well, the capacity was 700 something. But at one time we had 1,500 aboard.
Wow.
The men were sleeping in lifeboats and up on the deck and everywhere else. What they would do was send a whole group on that ship, and then the Commander Service Force they had to distribute them to different ships and everything. And they gradually would send them out, and then we'd be shorter than usual men.
Were there ever any ships that just couldn't be fixed? They were just damaged beyond repair?
No, just that one is all I ever saw. Most of the damage that they did was in the Pacific.
Wow. And did they feed you good on the ship?
Well, we were fed pretty good, but nothing like it was when we got off into the barracks.
Mm-hmm. So when you got off the ship into the barracks, what was your role then?
Yeah, well, it was we just lived in the barracks and still worked on. We had a special room built just for the radio shack and the code room, and we worked in it then. We didn't work too long on the ship with the machines like that.
Now, what Navy base was the Alcor located at?
It was located at NOB operating base in Norfolk.
Norfolk, okay. And do you remember being at Norfolk?
Being what?
Do you remember being there at Norfolk?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of the boys, when they told them we were going to be transferred to Norfolk, they were really raised about it. I didn't. I was getting closer home, man.
And speaking of home, what did your parents think about you being out at sea during the war?
My parents didn't know where I was. I wasn't supposed to let them know.
Okay.
I slipped off the ship and wrote them a letter one time and told them where I was. And in a few days they called me up to the office. Boy, did they get me down the road.
Oh, so you got in trouble.
I got in trouble, but they said, don't do that again.
Did you have any siblings? Any brothers?
No
No.
brothers.
So you're an only child?
No, I have 2 sisters.
Oh, 2 sisters, okay. And were you able to write letters? I know you said you got in trouble about telling your position, but were you allowed to write any letters?
Oh yes, we wrote letters all the time, but it went to New York, and then to our destination. Always had to write free up on it. We didn't have to buy stamps.
Oh wow. Any other experiences that you remember? Did you have any port calls or?
No, not particularly. The other two boys that was with me, see, we worked, each one of us worked a separate shift. I worked 8 hours, and then I got off, and they brought one on. Well, and it was kind of complicated, but we would work our 8 hours, then we were off 16 hours, and back again, and 16 again.
Now, when you were off for 16 hours, would you have to like clean?
I could go into town or wherever I wanted to.
Yeah. Except like when you're on duty, I guess.
Mm-hmm. It was one of the boys that worked with me was Noah Howard from over here at Harriman. I noticed they had his picture in the paper quite a while back. He was a younger man than I am. And William Rudquist was from Des Plaines, Illinois. Russell was, he was older than us. He was 29 years old, and they discharged him at 29 years old.
Wow. So, back when you were on the ship, did you make a lot of good friends?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but our crew was altogether different to the ship's crew, and I was never below deck or where the engine room was or anything on the ship. Our business was all up on the top of the ship.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever have any experiences where the ship was under attack or there was an enemy in the area?
We had a ship come in out in the Chesapeake Bay, and it made the entrance out there, and they gave the wrong identification signal. Within 5 minutes, we had airplanes circling over that ship, and they told them to give the correct signal or they're going to blow them out of the water.
Wow.
They gave it in a hurry. Had a new operator on the radio, and he was giving the wrong signal. And they had our ship already untied and ready to move out. The engines were already started. See, they wanted to get the animal out of there because he was commander service for it.
Okay. So tell me about a bomb exploding.
Well, we had a battleship was tied up with one of the piers over from us, and they brought the ammunition from the air base over there. They had Ford tractors with 3 trailers on. There was only one bomb to each tractor. That was for those 16-inch guns. And then pulled them over there somewhere, and there's something that shorted out one of those bombs, and it exploded. Well, it shook the whole base, and there was several killed over at the air station. We had another time when there was 2 ships run together. One of them was an ammunition ship, and the other was a tanker. They ran together out there, and both of them that was a mess. They hauled bodies in there and stacked them up on the piers until they could get ambulances coming, haul those bodies to morgues.
Wow.
That was the worst thing I saw while I was in there.
So, when were you discharged from the Navy?
I was discharged from the Navy in March the 1st. I got home
And
the 2nd, and it was the day before my 24th birthday.
What year was this?
That was 46.
1946. And so you got home and
I got home and got married a week later.
wow.
And we were married for 69 years.
Wow. And just recently your wife
Yes.
passed away.
First of last month.
And we're so sorry. And you and your wife came back here to Blount County after,
Oh, yeah.
or this is where you settled in?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, the lake had run us out up here. We lived right down next to the river. When the lake backed up, it took all of our property.
oh wow.
And my dad built this house out next door here, and they moved out there. We still lived down on the river when I went into the Navy. When I came back on my first leave, all that had been bulldozed down, and water was coming up around down there.
Wow. So tell me what it feels like to be a World War II veteran.
Was what?
What's it like to be a World War II veteran? Do you get thanked a lot? Do you, whenever you're out and about? I mean, what?
Well, I didn't get to get out of the Navy at the time all the celebration was going on.
Right.
We were in the radio shack the night that they declared the war was over. And we'd been in there all day. We knew that they'd dropped that bomb and that it was going to cause the war to be over. And they, at 6 minutes before 7, we got the news. Boy, everything broke loose. But I didn't get in much of that because I was in the Navy 6 months after the war was over.
Sure.
I didn't get discharged till then. I had the points, but they froze my rate and I had to stay a while.
Wow. So, how old are you today?
How old am I now?
Yes.
I'm 93.
93 years old. And the World War II ended 70 years ago this month. How do you feel today?
Well, not too good.
But knowing that you're a World War II veteran, 93 years old.
My biggest trouble is my legs. I don't have any use for them.
Okay. Well, we're really proud of you.
Thank you.
And you had a very important role on the USS Alcor. And really proud of you representing Blount County.
Thank you.
And is there anything else you want to say for this interview?
Well, there's nothing. One thing I'm going to say, my wife was married before I married, but her husband was killed in the war. They were married in 42.
Okay.
And we're together 5 days, and he had to go back. He was in the Army, and had to go back to the Army, and he was transferred overseas at that time. Well, he went through the North African invasion, and then was sent to Italy, and was killed over there 1 year after they got married.
Wow. And what was his name?
His name was Fred Kaler.
Fred Kaler. And was he from
He was from over on the other side of Maryville. He's from Forest Hill.
Okay, so from Blount County, Fred Kaler, your wife's first husband, he was killed in action in World War II.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ask him his wife's name.
Yeah. Well, tell me your wife's name.
Mildred,
Mildred.
Mildred Smith.
Yeah.
She was a Smith, and married a Kaler, and then she married a Smith.
So she got her name back. And you were married for 69 years.
69 years.
Wow. Well, like we just said a few minutes ago, we're very sorry for your loss, and I know that's hard. So, but we do thank you for this interview today, and we're glad to capture your story and be able to have it for future generations to see.
Thank you.